Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are celebrating 200 episodes of this podcast by playing a round of Advocates of Great Entertainment. Our topic this week is Great Homages, where we are going to be talking about episodes of shows that reference other movies or shows, basically. Yeah, so that's what our topic is going to be. That's our main topic. We've also got our regular segments. We've got our On the Horizon section. We've got our On Beat section with some news and trailers to go over, and then we're going to hop into Advocates to finish off the show. But let's get started with our On the Horizon segment. On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so, and we're going to start things with a banger. Peacemaker Season 2 debuts on Thursday, August 21st on HBO Max, formerly HBO Max, formerly HBO, formerly Home Box Office, formerly HBO, formerly Max Home Box Office.
Formerly.
The company that changes, that cycles their names like they just keep putting it back into a hat and shuffling it.
That station you have to pay for, that plays movies, and also you can see boobs.
Yeah. Formerly that place that people would only watch when they'd stay at a hotel.
Yeah.
Because they'd have a big sign out front that said, "We have HBO." That used to be basically like the only way people watched HBO.
It was originally Manhattan Cable TV Services.
That's the next name. It's HBO Max now, and that next name's gonna be, it's gonna go back to that.
Yeah.
But anyways, on topic, Peacemaker was amazing. That might be my favorite DC thing. Like, I think I like that more than Superman. I think I like that more than the Suicide Squad, the one that James Gunn did. I think that might be, so far, my favorite DC thing.
I agree. With the caveat, I haven't seen Superman yet.
Yeah.
But, I agree. I was blown away by Peacemaker. Even, as a fan of James Gunn going into it, I honestly did not have very high expectations for Peacemaker. I'm like, okay, if this is good, that'll be great. No, it blew away those expectations. I was like, wow.
Yeah. If I was to rate all the DC stuff that James Gunn is attached to, that I've seen so far, I would say it goes Peacemaker first, then probably Superman, then the Suicide Squad, and then Creature Commandos. But I like them all.
Yeah,
that's not a slight to Creature Commandos. I like that as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, same. I enjoyed that, too. I would probably rank that last.
Yeah. But Peacemaker back Thursday, August 21st. I'm super excited. We'll talk about that once the season's done. That's a must.
That's a must, for sure. That is definitely going to be on the podcast. So look forward to that.
Yep. You know what's out right now that we need to discuss once it's done?
What?
Alien Earth.
Oh, did that start already?
Yep. I think the first 2 episodes dropped on the same day.
Oh, yeah, I gotta watch it.
Yeah, that's gonna be a must to discuss as well. Next up, we've got Eenie, Meanie. I think we talked about this either last week or the week before. I can never remember. But this is the movie that stars Samara Weaving and Randall Park, and she plays like a getaway driver.
Yeah, okay. We did discuss this last week.
Yeah, that is coming on Friday, August 22nd to Hulu. Long story short, which we also discussed, again, either last week or the week before, is an animated series from the creator of BoJack Horseman. That is coming also on Friday, August 22nd to Netflix. And then lastly, on Friday, August 22nd, but in theaters, is Honey Don't, which is next movie from Ethan Coen of the Coen brothers, but not both of the Coen brothers. I'm gonna see this movie. I already looked up when the showtimes are, so I'm gonna see that next week. Yeah, it's got Aubrey Plaza and Chris Evans, and I think it's a newcomer for the lead actress. I don't think she's been in too terribly much. Her name's Margaret Qualley.
Oh yeah, sure.
But it's Ethan Coen, so that's the main draw, is it's one of the Coen brothers.
Yeah, one half of the Coen brothers.
Yeah, that's coming on Friday, August 22nd to theaters. That's it for our On the Horizon.
We live in a weird timeline now where the Coen brothers are making films separately, and now the Safdie brothers are just separately making movies.
Yeah. What's next? We got Lord movies and Miller movies?
Yeah, yeah, they're the next to break up. Hate to tell it. tell you.
And we're gonna have like Daniel 1 and Daniel 2 instead of the Daniels.
Right, yeah.
What's going on now? No more cats and dogs. It's cats and then dogs. That's it for our On the Horizon segment. Now we're gonna move on to On Beat. On Beat. On Beat is our news segment. We've got some news stories and trailers to go over. Our first news story is that Dave Bautista is set to play the villainous role of the Kurgen, previously played by Clancy Brown, opposite Henry Cavill in the upcoming Highlander remake that's being directed by John Wick's Chad Stahelski. I think you put it best when I read that headline to you and you said, I like all of those words put together.
Oh yeah, because I think like Dave Bautista, like I love Dave Bautista. He's fantastic. You know,
I love Henry Cavill.
I love Henry Cavill. Like
I love Highlander.
I love Highlander. I love Chad Stahelski for his work on John Wick, obviously.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think like we were just speculating because like we were talking about an art story recently where Russell Crowe had joined Highlander. We were kind of like speculating on his character, and I think like we kind of settled like he was going to be like the Sean Connery character.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, he could also like be a villain. That's like, no, well, we know who the villain is now.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
it's actually been confirmed. Like, this is a straight up remake of the first movie. Like, I wasn't sure if they were doing that or if they were going to do like the TV series, it's a different character, you know?
Right, yeah.
So I thought they might be doing something like that, like different characters, but maybe similar archetypes. But no, it's the same character. So we know that Russell Crowe is playing Ramirez. Like, that's been confirmed now. And Bautista's playing the Kurgen, you know, which is the character Clancy Brown played in the first movie. So yeah, I mean, which means I guess Henry's playing Connor McLeod.
Yes.
Because it's Duncan in the TV series and Connor in the movies. So I guess he's going to be playing Connor. So yeah, but I'm psyched for it. If you've listened to this podcast and our previous podcast, there have been several moments where we brought up Highlander and I've talked about my love for that franchise.
You're right.
We did a whole one where we talked about imagining a remake and like what would be like a really good remake for a TV show or a movie or something, and my pick was Highlander way back then. So yeah, I'm psyched for anything Highlander, especially if they're getting away from kind of the direction the series had been going in for a while, which was just really ridiculous shit that nobody really wanted. They were doing some pretty awful shit for a while with Highlander, and then it disappeared, and I was afraid if it came back, it would come back as garbage, and then Chad Stahelski being attached was like, ooh, and then Henry Cavill being attached was like, ooh.
I think going back to basics and going back and remaking the first movie is the play here.
Yeah.
To be honest, because like things gotten like so out of control and complicated. Like
the Immortals are actually aliens, and there's and now they're in the future.
Like I think like if we just go back to basics, go back to the first film, and then like diverge from there, you know, like the remake of the first film is like a good jumping off point to do like a reboot of like the universe.
Yeah, I think it needs a reboot. It doesn't, this shouldn't be like a Cobra Kai treatment.
No.
Where it's like, okay, we're gonna bring all these disparate elements from all the different Karate Kid stuff together into this series that connects them all and stuff. That's not what this needs. This needs like a reset.
Yeah, this needs a reset. Yeah, exactly. It needs a total like reset and a creative like rebooting.
Yeah, definitely. I hope they get some cameos though. It'd be really cool if they got like
cameos
Lambert or like Adrian Paul, you know, who played like the Highlanders in the movie and TV show, you know. Obviously they can't get Sean Connery, but
they haven't invented the technology to go to the afterlife yet.
If they did bring him back, it would be in a really shitty AI way that we wouldn't want. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Maybe Clancy Brown. It'd be cool if like Clancy Brown was playing just like some detective or something like on the scene.
Oh, that would be awesome.
You know, that'd be kind of a cool callback, you know.
That'd be a cool callback. That's like, I mean, I love Clancy Brown. He's been in so many things, like such a good actor. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But that's about as much as I would want it connected to the original Highlander stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Would just be like, you know, cameos or something. Not as those characters, obviously, but as like new people. They're just there, you know, just as like, oh, that actor was in the original movie. That's cool, you know, that kind of thing.
Clancy Brown shows up and says, I'm the original Kurgen.
Then he says, I don't care. I'm going to go, you know, be a guard at Shawshank now. See you later.
Yeah.
It's like, why was that in this movie? That's a weird direction. Resurrection.
I had this movie, yeah.
Did they just connect Shawshank Redemption and Highlander?
They did.
It's one universe now? What the hell's going on? Our next news story is that Zach Cregger has candidly stated that he has a completed but unpitched DC script titled Henchman that is about a henchman who accidentally takes down Batman.
Yeah.
And this is, I saw this was, I saw the idea. I'm like, this is really fascinating. Did you see later on, like, and it was like, oh yeah, obviously. Like, it just popped back into my memory the second I read it. Was they basically did the same concept in the animated series for an episode, too.
Yeah, there was an episode, The Man Who Killed Batman.
Yeah.
They beat Zach Cregger to the punch with that idea, but it's still, like, a fun idea and to, like, explore that in a film, and I'm sure, like, the script.
To be honest, a lot of the Batman the Animated Series stuff could use, like, longer recreation.
Longer
there's
form.
some really good stories in there. That
There
would be,
is.
like, good if they were redone as, like, an episode redone as a whole movie. You know?
The fact that they got, like, those concepts to, like, fit and work within, like, the time frame of, like, 20 minutes? Because you have, like, commercials, is just, like, so remarkable. Also,
that was
like,
a pretty spectacular show.
Also, what they were able to do with that show, the concepts they were able to produce, considering this was a children's show, like Warner Bros. Was producing this as, this is a cartoon for kids, it's going to air on weekdays after school, I think. It was interesting. I know, like, they've had comments and stuff, how they had to fight censors and they had to fight Warner Brothers for things because of their status as like a children's cartoon, but the way that they managed to, like, still make it very sophisticated, more sophisticated than you would expect, is remarkable.
Just the visual aesthetic of that show was, like, fascinating, you know?
Yeah, it was it was like this.
When everybody else was doing, like, neon colors and fucking,
this was like
characters saying rad while they're wearing, like, Oakleys and shit, you know?
Yeah,
so, like something like Batman.
Desperately trying to appeal to the kids. This was, like, retro 1940s aesthetic.
It's crazy. Like, there's a lot about that show that's, like, amazing, ahead of its time. Yeah, like, there's so many things you could say about it. But, back to Cregger. I love the idea about this. As you said before we recorded this, though, it's just a script. This is not pitch. James Gunn likely heard about this for the first time the same time we did.
Yeah, because Cregger didn't pitch it to DC. Like, that's the thing. I see, like, a lot of, like, websites with, like, this headline, like, oh, Zach Cregger. Yes, but it hasn't been pitched, so, like, there's, at this moment, as we're speaking, I want to stress this, there is no movement on this. There could be movement on this. Like, it's kind of thing, like, I believe Cregger wrote this, like, years ago, like, before he was, like, a big name. I believe he came up with this while he was still, like, doing White as Kids You Know.
He does say it's his favorite thing he's written.
Yes, he does say it's his favorite thing he's written. It's a fun concept. It's funny because, like,
it would also fit in very nice with, like, the whole Elseworld concept that they're doing with DC.
Yes. It's just gotta, like, I don't know. There's a lot of things to consider there. There's, like, obviously Warner Brothers and DC Studios, they have, like, their own roadmap of films that they're looking at, that they're looking to produce. Mm-hmm. And so they would have to, like, make room for this if they were to pick it up. There's the thing, like, does it fit into, like, what their plans are for Batman? Do they want, like, a third Batman movie, like, on the schedule? There's a lot to consider, like, before, like, this, like, becomes, like, because it's so much more than just, oh, we got Zach Cregger wanting to do a movie. There's, like, so much involved that needs to happen.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
What makes this particularly interesting, though, is that Zach Cregger, basically, he was like a sketch comedy guy. Oh, he's gonna get into directing. Okay, that's cool, I guess. And then he did Barbarian, and that got a lot of buzz. And then people were like, okay, let's pay attention to what he's doing next. And then he produced, but didn't direct, Companion, which was really good, too. And it was like, okay, he's a good tastemaker. He's kind of got it, but what's his second movie gonna be like? What's his second directorial movie gonna be like? And then he just last week put out Weapons, and it's kind of blowing everybody away. And overnight, Cregger is now a household name. And that's really cool. And that leads us into our next story, which is weapons numbers. So Weapons made $43.5 million domestically over its first weekend. That beats Barbarian, his previous movie, which had a total gross of $40 billion in its entire theatrical run. So in its first weekend, Weapons has beat Barbarian for its entire run.
Mm-hmm.
Weapons was only projected to make between 25 and 40 million. So it way overshot that.
Right. Again, like I was talking before the podcast, I'm not surprised by this just because, like...
There was hype. You could feel it.
Yeah, there was hype. Oh, yeah. Because there's, like, a lot of hype behind it because Zach Cregger had proven himself as a name to watch, like, after Barbarian came out.
Mm-hmm.
Horror movies, in general, are just doing really well at theaters right now. There is an audience demand for good horror, and Weapons had, like, a very slick marketing campaign behind it that just makes you, like, if you watch the trailers, it makes you want to go see that movie to see what it's about. And if you couple that with the hype, with the buzz, like, that creates momentum.
And how compelling the mystery is, too. I mean, the logline for the movie is a rather long statement that's basically the entire premise of the movie in a nutshell, and it's, like, so compelling.
And also the great reviews and the audience score.
Yeah.
Like, also doesn't.
Let's talk about that right
hurt.
now. Rotten Tomatoes, 94% with an 86% audience score. Metacritic, it's 81% with a 76% audience score.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those are fantastic.
Yeah. So it's got the scores behind it. It's got everything going for it. So I'm not surprised that, like, it reached these heights. Barbarian is kind of like, okay, that's a different situation where, like, Zach Cregger wasn't a known quantity at that point. I don't know if...
Barbarian was also, I think it was a little harder to advertise. Like, the premise itself for Weapons is really fascinating. Barbarian, you'd have to kind of, like, ruin the movie if you were to, like, if you were to explain why you need to see Barbarian, like, it would ruin the surprise.
It would ruin it's a tougher nut to crack from, like, a marketing perspective. And I could tell, like, they tried to do the cutesy thing.
They did some interesting things,
Yeah, the cutesy thing where they tried to, like, market it as a romantic comedy. They tried some things to, like, market it. I don't think it landed quite well for that movie. That was the kind of movie that succeeded through, like, word of mouth. You know, it was like people had to take a chance on it first and then tell other people to watch it.
Yeah, like the line for Barbarian is just trust me, bro.
Exactly. Exactly.
You can't really market it that well. Like, the way it works is you walk up to somebody, you say, have you seen Barbarian? And they say no. I say, oh, you gotta see Barbarian. And they say, what's it about? Just trust me, bro.
Just trust me, bro.
Just go in blind, you know? That's what Barbarian is, like, in a nutshell. That's, like, the kind of movie it is. So, yeah. Weapons has, like, a log line. Weapons, you can recite that whole log line, which is directly stated in it's like the opening scene of the movie. That entire log line is spoken, you know? It's, like, narrated out.
Where, like, these kids ran away and they were never seen again. This is, like, the gist of it. And it's like, oh, why did that happen?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, okay, now you have my attention.
It works so great also, I mean, this is, like, I'm not gonna give, I've seen the movie, but I'm not gonna give, like, spoilers. But I said this before, which is that you hear that premise, you watch the trailer, you see the name Zach Cregger after Barbarian and Companion, and then you see the title is Weapons, and it's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, exactly. It just, like, gets your attention with that. And so, I'm happy for it. I'm happy for Zach Cregger. Like, I'm happy good movies are succeeding at the box office. So, yeah, good news all around.
Yeah, so some other stats related to this. This opened opposite Freakier Friday, which is a franchise movie. It's a return. It's a nostalgia play. And that was expected to do much better than Weapons. As I said, Weapons was projected to do between 25 and 40. Like, 40 was the cap. If Weapons is phenomenally successful, beyond our wildest imagining, it's going to do about 40 million. It ended up doing 43.5 million. Like, the low end of it was 25 million. Freakier Friday was expected to do about 40 million. It only ended up doing about 28.6 million. But even still, not even to discount Freakier Friday and say, like, oh, that's trash and didn't do whatever, you know? Like, the fact that it was projected Freakier Friday was going to win the weekend, and Weapons didn't just win the weekend, but by, like, a big margin. It dominated the weekend, you know? It took the weekend and made it its bitch. Like, that's a big deal. Also, it's worth pointing out that the budget for Weapons was relatively small. It's $38 million, which by today's standards is nothing. That's, like, so small by today's standards for a budget. Especially considering it did have a decent cast. I mean, Josh Brolin's in this, Julie Garner, who's just now like blowing up herself after Ozark and Fantastic Four and stuff. But it's a budget of only $38 million, which means it made back its production budget in its first weekend. And it's going to make back its, breaking even point in like probably the next week or two, which is crazy. That's like really good. It also has like these weird statistics attached to it. I brought this one up to you. I'm like, how arbitrary is this statistic? Best August Monday for a horror film. And that doesn't mean a film that opened on a Monday. Just a Monday in August for a horror film. There's so many things, but this is a stat that's being tracked. And the current record holder for that was The Sixth Sense. So this beat out The Sixth Sense as the best August Monday for a horror film. As weird as that statistic is. The bigger statistic that's going around, though, is that this movie now makes Warner Brothers the first studio ever to have 6 consecutive films break over 40 million in their debuts. That's with Minecraft, Sinners, Final Destination, Bloodlines, F1, Superman, and Weapons now. So that's like a big deal, too. Again, it feels very arbitrary.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Specifically saying 40 million. Like if they were saying over 10 million, like back in the day, that would make sense. If they were saying 100 million, that was like 40 million is kind of a weird number, to be like so arbitrarily placed in that kind of category. But this is something that this isn't just like some record that they only talked about because of Weapons. This is like something that was already being tracked for other things, So it's kind of weird statistics, but it's interesting. And as you said, it's very nice that Zach Cregger is kind of making a name for himself. He's now a household name. He's doing really well. The movie is great and it did well in theaters, and that's great. Whenever good movies do well, it's great. And to end off this story, getting away from Cregger a little bit, just like as a quick update, since we're talking about box office numbers, Fantastic Four has now made $437 million globally, and Superman has now made $581 million globally. So they're both at that like $500 million point right now, and they're still in theaters. But that's it for our regular news stories, and now we're going to move on to trailers. We've got 4 trailers to go over this week. First, we got our first like actual trailer for season 2 of One Piece, and it came along with a confirmation of a season 3 of One Piece. I know you've watched the Netflix series One Piece, but you haven't watched the anime, you haven't read the manga. So when we talked about One Piece, I was saying like, oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff you don't know. And you know some stuff just because of the zeitgeist. Like, you know who Tony Chopper is before they did the
review. I
know
who Chopper is. I read a few chapters of manga. Come on.
Yeah.
So some of the beginnings.
Yeah, but mostly what you know is like in the cultural zeitgeist. It's
right.
Stuff that's like people talk about. So what did you think, as somebody who isn't as familiar with the material, what did you think of the trailer for season 2?
It looks amazing. Looks absolutely incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot of points in it where I was like, oh yeah. There's like a lot of things that if like, you know.
Visually it looks stunning. Looks like great action character. I mean, you couldn't like expect a better trailer to like make me hyped, and then like the hype gets deflated when it says 2026.
That's a little unfortunate, but yeah.
But they confirmed season 3, so like they are committed to a 3rd season of the live action One Piece. Apparently we saw some things. I'll leave that to you, but like I know One Piece creator Oda said that season 2 will cover Logtown, Reverse Mountain, Whiskey Peak, Little Garden, and Drum Island.
Okay, so here's what I'll say.
Being covered.
Because I have a horrible memory. Go through those one at a time. So what's the first one? Logtown?
Yeah, Logtown.
Logtown is where I thought they were going to end season 1.
Okay.
Logtown is very important to like the lore of One Piece. Like I'm not going to spoil stuff, but it's very important in setting up what One Piece is moving forward.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Reverse Mountain.
Reverse Mountain is, you've heard them talk about the Grand Line? Reverse Mountain is how you get to the Grand Line.
Gotcha. Whiskey Peak.
Whiskey Peak, I don't even really remember exactly. I think that's the introduction of Vivi, who's like a big character.
Little Garden.
Little Garden is the Giants. You saw a giant in the trailer.
Yes. Okay.
And the Giants are just coming back into play now. Like in the manga.
Interesting.
So like 1,000 chapters later, like those Giants are just coming back into play.
The Giants return.
Yeah. And so that shows you that it's kind of interesting there.
And season 2 is ending on Drum Island.
Drum Island, there's one major character that we've mentioned before that appears in Drum Island, which I mentioned him by name, and
chopper.
Yep.
Get to the chopper.
That's where we get to the chopper, is in Rhode Island.
Nice.
So what this also means is that I think Crocodile is in season 2 because they announced the cast for him. You know, it's what's his name from True Blood, the werewolf from True Blood, that D&D game master guy, Joe something.
I know who you're talking about. He was the bully in Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's playing Crocodile.
Flash Thompson.
Yeah, he's playing Crocodile. That means that we're not going to see Crocodile probably interacting with the crew. We're going to see him just kind of like as like an inside character that in the background of other characters' perspectives, rather than seeing him interact, because that doesn't happen until Arabasta, which is like later. So he's going to be probably the main villain of season 3, I'd imagine.
Okay.
So they're just going to kind of hint at him before in this season. But yeah, One Piece looks great. I'm excited for it. It's cool. I think there's aspects of it I'm watching where I'm like, yeah, this is kind of cheesy and this is kind of weird and stuff. But I'm like, but how else are you going to fucking do One Piece? How can you adapt One Piece? Like, when this was announced to be made, we talked about it on the show. I was like, how the fuck do you do One Piece, you know?
Here's the thing, and here's the thing that the One Piece adaptation gets right, that most adaptations get wrong, is that a lot of adaptations of stuff that come from animation, that come from comics, are afraid of the cartoony nature of those things, are afraid of how cartoonish it is, and they want to transmortify it into something more serious and great, because they're almost ashamed to be producing that, so they shirk from that. And One Piece embraces it. It embraces all the goofiness that's inherent to One Piece that works well in the aspect of a comic, in the aspect of an animated show, which works very well, but doesn't necessarily translate to live action. They managed to make it work by just embracing it and just doing it and just being yes, this is the world of One Piece.
I think another trick that they did that was very effective is that One Piece has this insane scale. The world building and the scale of things in the world is so huge, and it's set on the ocean with all these islands, and every island is completely different and fantastical. And it's I think one of the things they did that was really smart is that there's just no way you can properly do that in a budget for a live action. The answer to it is that you can show that scale in kind of brief scenes, and then you kind of shoot the rest of it almost like it's a stage play. It's like a stage play with effects over the top, you know? So a lot of the moments are focused on these character moments, and they're kind of set in these kind of small sets in these locations and stuff. And you still have these big, huge moments, but they're really brief, and then it kind of focuses back in on the characters in these kind of smaller sets and stuff. And I think kind of modeling how the show progresses on the idea of a stage play is a really smart way of handling that. Because you can still you have those interim moments where you can show the scale, and then you can kind of narrow down and say, okay, we're just focusing on the characters now.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So I think that was a really smart choice too, budgeting wise, to make it workable. But yeah, so that's One Piece. Next up, we got a trailer for Haunted Hotel, which says from the producers of Rick and Morty. They didn't mention Dan Harmon specifically, so I'm guessing it's some other random producers that worked on it.
I don't think it's Dan Harmon.
I think if it was Dan Harmon, they would have said from Dan Harmon.
It's definitely going for that sort of Gonzo style, right? So apparently it's set in a haunted hotel. This woman runs with her family, and her husband is apparently a ghost. Presumably he gets killed in the haunted hotel and becomes a ghost. And they're just basically having to deal constantly with all these spirits haunting the place, and all these demons dropping in, and all this weird supernatural phenomena. And it basically, the humor comes from she's basically accepted it as everyday life.
Yeah.
So and so it's just all this crazy shit happening.
It's a lot of horror tropes and stuff kind of stuffed together.
Yes.
So it's kind of...
It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Next we got a trailer, not for anything, because this is only a trailer. There is no movie.
Okay, I want to say, this is a trailer, but this is also the movie.
Yeah.
At the same time.
This is for The Piano Killer, which is from the writer, I guess. It's not from Eli Roth. It's from the writer of the original Thanksgiving trailer, not the movie, the trailer, that was in the Grindhouse. How to explain Grindhouse? For anybody who doesn't know what Grindhouse is, Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino got together and they wanted to make a movie that kind of fit into the idea of like Grindhouse movies in like the 70s and stuff that don't really exist anymore.
So a Grindhouse movie in the 70s, like, it was basically the concept of a Grindhouse movie was it's a movie that was low budget, that relied heavily on the exploitation and shock value to draw in an audience. So a heavy emphasis on sex, on violence, on gore, stuff like that.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, all the good stuff. It was done in just a way that was completely exploitative and schlocky. A lot of people would say there's not much artistic merit in those types of films. That is what a Grindhouse film is.
And so the Grindhouse movie that Tarantino and Rodriguez made, it was like a double feature. So Tarantino did one called Death Proof, and I forgot the one Rodriguez.
Planet Terror.
Planet Terror.
Right. Robert Rodriguez, yeah. So,
and then between those two movies, they had a bunch of trailers for movies that don't actually exist, or at least didn't actually exist.
Because the way it was set up as like, you would go to like a drive-in theater, like, which still existed in the 70s. You would go to a drive-in theater, and typically at the drive-ins, like, they would show multiple movies back to back.
The old double feature, yeah.
So the idea behind Grindhouse was you were going to a drive-in theater to watch a double feature of, Grindhouse films, and in between that they had trailers for other Grindhouse films, so Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez got some of their director friends together to make fake trailers for other fictional Grindhouse films that existed in this sort of like meta universe where these two other films existed.
Yeah.
The real films that they made.
Rodriguez himself did a trailer for Machete, which later became not just a film, but a franchise.
Yeah.
Eli Roth did one for Thanksgiving, which just recently, like in the last couple of years, had a movie finally come out for it after 20 years, something like that. I don't know if Tarantino did a trailer. I think he just did Death Proof.
Yeah, Tarantino did not do a trailer, interestingly enough. Yeah.
You mentioned before the podcast, Edgar Wright did one that has not been made into a movie.
Yep.
Hobo with the Shotgun. Who did Hobo with the Shotgun? Was that also Rodriguez, or was that somebody else?
No, that wasn't Rodriguez, but I can't remember who
I know he didn't do the main movie, but I wasn't sure if he did the trailer or not. I don't know. But anyways, there were a bunch of trailers.
Rob Zombie had SS Women.
That's right. That's right. The Rob Zombie one.
Werewolf Women of the SS, I think it was called.
Yes.
Rob Zombie, yeah.
Very Grindhouse, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Okay, Jason Eisner was the director who did the Grindhouse Hobo with the Shotgun trailer, and then he made a full movie out of it.
Okay. So, oddly enough, as we've already mentioned here, like, some of these trailers, which were not meant to be even backdoor pilots for movies, they were just trailers, like, what would be a crazy Grindhouse trailer? And they just made a bunch of them. Almost all of them now have been made into, like, actual movies. Only, like, 2 of them haven't, And like, as I said, Machete was made into a whole franchise. There's, like, 3 Machete movies.
This is done in the style of, like, a Dario Argento film with, like, a completely absurd premise where, like, it's a killer killing people with pianos, dropping pianos on them, like, very Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Looney Tunes meets a slasher film, meets Dario Argento type thing, which is, like...
Very much, it does have a very, like, Argento vibe to it.
Yes.
It's a really funny trailer, but this isn't for anything. There is a joke in the trailer where it says something along the lines of coming in, I think it says like 2046 with a question mark or something, meaning like, oh, maybe in 20 years this will be made,
So this is actually this is actually to promote Eli Roth's new studio initiative, the Horror Section, which is an initiative Eli Roth and his friends put together to promote independent horror films, which is the first one coming out is Jimmy and Stiggs, which you see the interstitial for at the end of this trailer. And this trailer will be playing before Jimmy and Stiggs in theaters. Mm-hmm. So it's basically made to promote this initiative Eli Roth has come up with, and also Eli Roth said he loves making trailers for fake movies because, as he said, you get to focus on the fun bits of a movie instead of the boring bits like plot and character development.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it would be a lot of fun to do, you know? You can just go like, okay, well, we come up with an outline for a story, then we come up with the big beats, the big hits that would show up in the trailer, and that's all you need to focus on. You don't even need to think about anything else.
Basically,
you don't need any resolution, you don't need any development. It's just like, what are the big beats we need, and then you just film those.
I'm looking at a trailer for Jimmy and Stig's film that's coming out Friday. I'm shocked we didn't cover this, because this looks bonkers as hell. Oh, God, yeah.
This just missed my trailer playlist, I guess.
I guess so, yeah.
A little behind the scenes thing, when I gather like trailers that we're going to cover, I just gather them throughout the week and end up with like a list of like 30, 40 trailers usually.
To be fair,
and then maybe like the day before we do the podcast, I like watch through them all and just start like trimming down the list.
To be fair to you, like I didn't even know about this movie till today, so like already the Piano Killer has done its job of like focusing my attention on like this other movie that's actually coming out that they're trying to promote.
And then the last trailer we got this week is for Traumatica, which is a horror movie that's got like a little bit of a Sam Raimi vibe to it, like in the coloration of the frames and stuff. It's got that same kind of like shadow depth that I'd expect in like Evil Dead or something, which was the big selling point for me. A lot of the rest of the trailer really didn't do too much for me, but like the lighting and stuff did it for me. I'm like, this feels like an 80s high gore horror film.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is a trip. You know, like, oh yeah.
It just looks vicious too, which is something that we oftentimes don't have as much of in horror films anymore.
No, we don't. It looks mean. Like the last one I could think of that was genuinely vicious was like the new Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah.
That was like a mean movie. And like this looks like this is gonna be like the same type of like mean.
Yeah, definitely. But that's, I mean, I don't have too terribly much else to say beyond that. But that is it for our trailers and for our news segment on Beat. And now we're going to move on to our final segment, Advocates of Great Entertainment.
Advocates of Great Entertainment.
I'm here to kill chaos, bitches!
This week for Advocates, for this, our 200th episode, we are doing Great Homages. We each picked an episode of a TV show that celebrates or pays homage to in some way a previous movie or TV show. And Will, tell us what your pick was.
My pick was Supernatural Season 5, I want to say Episode 5.
That's right.
Which was Fallen Idols, which was a take on the House of Wax remake. And what's fun about like this episode is like this was just made to like bust the balls of Jared Padalecki because like he was a star in that film.
Yeah, and they even got Paris Hilton, who was in the film, to play herself.
To somewhat play herself.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. To be like the main guest star of the episode in like a really fun turn. Yeah, no, it was a fun episode. But what did you pick?
My pick was Psych, Season 5, Episode 12. We both picked Season 5 episodes from different shows, but...
Funny enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dual Spires, which is an homage to Twin Peaks.
Season 5 seems to be when shows seem to be comfortable doing homages, apparently.
Yeah. I think Season 5 is a good place for experimentation in shows.
It really is, yeah.
Think about like Buffy, for example. Season 5 of Buffy was the glory season. That's where you had like The Body, for example.
Yeah, The Body, yeah.
You know, it's like you get a lot of experimentation ideas there.
Yeah, it's the point in a show's run where
you're secure.
You're secure, yeah. The show has found its footing, it's found its identity, and now we can play with that.
Honestly, you picked something from Supernatural Season 5. Honestly, if I was to make a top 10 list of Supernatural episodes, like half of them would be in Season 5. Because you have what probably maybe should have been the series finale, which was the season finale of Season 5, because that's where like Kripke left. You also have Changing Channels, which is like the Groundhog's Day episode. You have that one episode where like Lucifer kills all those gods, you know? There's just so many like really standout episodes in Season 5 that it's like kind of crazy, you know? But yeah, as we said, Season 5 is a good time to kind of do like weird stuff and experiment. And one of the ways you can do weird stuff and experiment is by paying homage to your own favorites. And you want to start with Supernatural or should we start with Psych?
Let's start with Psych.
Okay, so what's funny about this episode for you and me, had you seen this episode before, first off?
No, this is my first time seeing this. I'm watching it and I'm trying to think of it in the perspective of watching it without knowing about Twin Peaks and thinking, if I didn't know about Twin Peaks or references, I'd probably be thinking, like, that was a pretty solid hour of television, I suppose. Like, they went to this quirk town and it was like, yeah, alright, that was pretty neat. I wouldn't think that much more about it.
Yeah. So I knew this was like a Twin Peaks homage before I saw it, and I knew a lot about Twin Peaks just from the cultural zeitgeist. As we mentioned like last week, like Twin Peaks is one of the shows in the cultural zeitgeist that people like know and talk about and stuff. So it's something I knew about from there. But at the time, I had not seen Twin Peaks. I had not seen a single episode of Twin Peaks. I had not seen the movie. Obviously the returns hadn't come out yet at that point either. So I had not seen anything Twin Peaks at all. I just knew about it from the cultural zeitgeist. So when I watched the episode, like, I really didn't know anything except like, oh, mysterious small town murder, that I knew the iconic shot with the girl wrapped in plastic, on the beach or whatever
right. Yeah.
Like that kind of things, like those are like iconic things that I knew about Twin Peaks. That's about it. I didn't really know anything else. Now, Twin Peaks is really important to us for this podcast and for what we've done together as far as like websites and everything that we've worked on that's been associated with this podcast and stuff, because we did something very early on before we even had the podcast where we said, I wanted to do a show club. I said, let's do a show club where we like get together and we talk about a show and we go through like the entire series, and it's like a book club but for a show. And that was like an idea I had, and then we put up like a poll, and we didn't get a lot of people voting on it, but we put up a poll with some like big kind of shows that I think all of them were ones that none of us had seen, or like you and I hadn't seen, but at the time like Kat was with us on it and she had seen Twin Peaks and stuff, but you and I had not seen like I think anything that was in the poll at the time. And Twin Peaks won, and so we said, okay, yeah, let's jump into Twin Peaks, let's finally watch it. And we watched through that whole thing, and it was formative for what we do now on the podcast, was discussing Twin Peaks, kind of created the groundwork for what we do now. And I had seen this episode of Psych, but that was all before that, so I had no idea, and I haven't seen it since. So this is my first time seeing this episode since watching Twin Peaks. You've obviously, as I've mentioned, also have watched Twin Peaks. What did you think of this episode and like the Twin Peaksness of it?
Oh, I thought it was great. I thought the references were like perfect. The fact that they got like so many Twin Peaks alumni to like guest star in this episode, like I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. They got Bobby, and I was like, oh, they got Laura Palmer. I thought like, one or two people showing up for this, but man, they did manage to actually get a lot of people, which is pretty fun. Yeah.
It's fun seeing them all. It's fun seeing them kind of like in interesting ways. I think they really nailed one aspect of Twin Peaks really well. Like I think Twin Peaks is kind of like a weird mix of like two things. It's like a really kind of cheesy soap opera, and it's also this like surrealist supernatural story. And it's kind of like this weird hodgepodge of those two things. And they really kind of focused more on like the soap opera part, which was like a big part of like the tone of Twin Peaks, more than like the mystery itself. And I loved how they did that, like the overly melodramatic music, cues and the crying moments. And they did a great bit with like Gus being a sympathetic crier. And so these characters would be like going way over the top crying, and Sean's like, oh, I guess this is a bit over the top. And he'd look over to his side and Gus would be all tearing up too. I thought that was great. I thought it was hilarious, and it really fit. I think another thing that this really did well was it did a good job of taking in the tone of Twin Peaks while also like maintaining the tone of Psych. Whereas like
an interesting like project, right? Because like they're totally different.
Yeah, but it fits because Twin Peaks, like I said, is kind of a mishmash of two different things. It's a mishmash of like this kind of cheesy soap opera that's overly dramatic and stuff, but also this like really dark, like supernatural story, And it's like those two things kind of crammed together, and they merge in like unexpected ways that really works. And as I said, like they really kind of focused more on like the weird soap opera side.
Yeah, they shoot the dark. They don't even like really touch on the supernatural elements of Twin Peaks like at all in this.
There's just hints of it maybe at the very end, really.
Yeah.
And it's not even hints towards supernatural, it just hints towards the things that were supernatural, in Twin Peaks. But it works because just as Twin Peaks was like this mashup of like these two different kind of things, the Psych episode ends up also being a mashup of these two different things. One being that one aspect of Twin Peaks and the other being a Psych episode.
Right.
And I think it worked really well. It's also funny because I found out
it's funny because like, obviously they didn't get Kyle MacLachlan for this.
Yeah.
Which would have been amazing.
Yeah, that would have been really cool. That's like, I think the biggest missing element.
So they kind of like had Timothy Amundson's like character, who's a regular character on Psych, fill in as like that role.
He even like dressed up more than he normally would, kind of like took on the appearance of Cooper.
Yeah, took on the appearance of Cooper. Said stuff like, "Oh, this is like a good." He said at one point, this is a good cup of apple cider.
Yeah, he's like, "This is a damn fine cup of apple cider." It's like,
yeah. Which I thought was like kind of funny. They kind of like took that character, Timothy Amundson's character, and like transformed him into Cooper for this episode.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. They also, I was going to say, this episode, oddly enough, is directed by Matt Shakman, who is right now the director of a huge movie.
One of Marvel's biggest movies of the year. So the Fantastic Four.
He also previously had worked on TV. He'd done episodes of like Game of Thrones. He'd also done WandaVision. He was like the main director on WandaVision, which is how he got involved with Marvel.
Yeah, like he's done episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So like he's been like a prolific director for television for a while.
This is an early one in his career, though, I think. So it's interesting. I had no idea.
He was a child star in the 80s. He starred in Just the Ten of Us. So he's had like quite the interesting journey through Hollywood.
Yeah, definitely. He's done some good stuff. He's done a few episodes of Psych. He's done he's done 4 other episodes of Psych as well. But he has a pretty big list of stuff he's worked on. House, Weeds. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting just the timing for this, because I didn't know that he had directed this episode till I was putting the show notes together, and I'm like, oh wow, I was just talking about.
Well, that's like another. It's not a Twin Peaks reference, because as far as I know, Max Shakeman directed 0 episodes of Twin Peaks. But yes, it is very funny.
It's just like an interesting thing. It's like, oh wow, yeah, he's directed one of the biggest movies out in theaters right now. That's just kind of fascinating. But yeah, another thing that's kind of interesting about this that I wanted to bring up is that if you notice, they brought in Ray Wise.
Yeah, Ray Wise.
Who played Leland Palmer in Twin Peaks, of course.
He was a priest. Ray Wise, as you had mentioned to me before, had already appeared on Psych, so he had already had an established character on the show, and so apparently he comes back as this character that they already knew, that they established. But they do another reference with his character where like his hair turns white.
Yeah, it's just hilarious. It's so funny.
Which is hilarious. Yeah.
They're like, "What happened to your hair?" And he's like, "I don't know."
I don't know. Yeah.
They had the log lady was in it, credited in the credits as Woodwoman, which is hilarious in itself.
Yeah, which is so fantastic.
Yeah, they even played like the names. Sherilyn Fenn, who played Audrey Horne in Twin Peaks. Her character's last name is Hornsby.
Yeah, and Maudette is like sort of similar sounding to Audrey.
Yeah,
Maudette. Dr. Donna Gooden. Actually, that doesn't really sound a lot like Laura Palmer at all. So like they didn't really do anything there.
Well, I got Donna, Laura. I guess that's close.
I guess.
But yeah, it's a very cool homage thing. You could tell there's a lot of love and care put into like trying to really honor what they loved about Twin Peaks, like personally. Like they weren't just trying to hit all the milestones. They were like, really drawing upon the things that drew them into it.
Oh yeah.
And that comes down to, they did, like if you've watched Psych before, you know that the creator of the show has a band, and the band did the theme song for Psych. And then through the history of Psych, they've done like different versions of the song. I think they did like a mariachi one at one point. And so they've done all these different versions of the theme song, like for special episodes here and there. And for this one, they got Julie Cruz to redo the theme song. Julie Cruz is the person who did the theme song for Twin Peaks.
Right.
And so she recorded this kind of like slow, creepy version of the Psych theme song, the I Know You Know song, but like totally in like the Twin Peaks style, which I thought was great. That was like hilarious just watching the opening credits even,
Oh
and
yeah. Oh yeah.
And then I hinted at it before, but the ending is great. Like you just have all the characters and just dancing weirdly, and like Sean and Juliet are like, we gotta get out of here. This is too weird.
Yeah, this is too weird. Yeah, I love love that. Yeah, this was a great episode for fans of Twin Peaks. Like, just seeing all the references. Of course, like, if you're a fan of Psych, you're gonna love it. Especially because, like, one of the highlights of the episode is all this Twin Peaks stuff happening and just the main characters, Sean and Gus, just, like, reacting to it.
Yeah, they're just there for a cinnamon festival.
Yeah, they're just there for the cinnamon festival. Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. It was a good episode. Now we get to talk about Supernatural for 10 minutes.
So Supernatural, I've watched every episode of Supernatural a few times. I watched it through myself, but then I also watched it again because I caught a friend up with it around season 5. So, like, I'd seen this episode twice because of that.
Like, I picked up Supernatural during season 4, and then I went back, I watched seasons 1 through 3 to catch myself up.
I think what got me with Supernatural was, like, the very end of season 3, when they did that episode where Dean went to hell.
The first episode of Supernatural I've ever seen that I sat down and watched, I just caught this as at random, just like channel surfing, right?
This is one of the best episodes, yeah.
Was the episode of Dean, like, getting out of hell. Like,
another season 5 classic, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was season 4, wasn't it?
No, channel surfing was season 5. Channel surfing's the one where they were, like, stuck in the TV show?
No, I'm talking about, like, the first episode of Supernatural I saw.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you were channel surfing.
Yeah, I was channel surfing. Yeah, not the name of the episode. Yeah, I was channel surfing randomly. I just came upon the show.
It's the one where Dean got out of hell. That was the first episode of season 4. I think that was called, like, Lazarus Rising or something.
Yeah, Lazarus Rising. Yeah, that was the first one. Dean gets out of hell, and he encounters Castiel. I watched it because I was just, like, fascinated by it. I was like, oh, okay. And then when I got to the end of Castiel, I was like, oh, shit, this show is, like, legit. I gotta, like, watch all of this.
Yeah, I watched the first episode of Supernatural when it aired, and then, like, the second episode would really, like, Monster of the Week, and I just was not into that.
Right.
And so I fell off the series after the second episode, just because, like, I was into the first episode, and then the second went this whole Monster of the Week route, like, immediately, and I was like, eh. And then I think the one that really got my attention, and I just happened on it in, like, the middle of the episode, like, I didn't watch the whole thing, was, like, the finale of season 3. And I was like, oh, this is, like, crazy. This is, like, something really good here. And then I went back and watched the whole series, and I still maintain that Supernatural is kind of only okay until around the point of the cult in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
When that gun comes into play, it's like a big lore dump.
Yes.
And it just starts getting, like, that's when something really interesting.
It gets, like, more serialized from that point.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of where it got interesting to me. But as I said, like, season 5 is, like, to me, is easily the best season.
I do like the Monster of the Week episodes, though, because, like, the monsters...
I do now. I just wasn't into it at the time.
Right, yeah, that's fair.
It wasn't what I was looking for.
It's interesting, too, because, like, the episode we're going to be talking about is a Monster of the Week episode, but I love the fact that they have, like, dialogue in the middle of it. Like, they're going to do this Monster of the Week, but this is, like, in the middle of, like, all this apocalyptic shit happening, like, in the serialized story. And so they're referencing it. He's like, why are we bothering with this? You know, we got Satan and Michael, and, like, you know, the apocalypse is happening, and Dean's just like, we just need to do something simple.
Dean's all, well, your actor went off and did this movie called House of Wax, and now we gotta bust your balls about it.
Exactly. Just, like, stuck dialogue in there to excuse themselves to, like, do this.
And that happens in, like, a lot of the Monster of the Week episodes, where, like, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll do that kind of dialogue moment in, like, the episode that follows, like, a very plot-heavy episode.
Yeah.
Like, they'll have this crazy plot-heavy episode, and then the next episode will be, like, a Monster of the Week episode. And so they have to go, like, explain why they're doing a Monster of the Week episode now.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like I said, I like the Monster of the Week episodes of Supernatural now, but, like, when I first started watching Supernatural, when it first started, it wasn't what I was looking for. Like, I mean, you gotta think, like, around the time Supernatural started, that's also around, like, the time Lost started.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, like, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for, like, mysteries, like, serialized mysteries, you know?
Yeah, TV was, like, a lot more heavily serialized at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, it felt very episode of the week after, like, the second episode, and I just kind of fell off from there. I'm like, I was interested in the main story, but I wasn't really that into the sub-story. And, I mean, some of the best episodes of Supernatural are Monster of the Week episodes, looking back now, but, you know, at the time, it just wasn't doing it for me. It's similar to, like, you know, X-Files, same way. Like, some of the best episodes are Monster of the Week episodes.
So this one is, and I want to put, like, in air quotes, like, a homage, because not really a homage, like...
It's a ball bust.
Of the House of Wax remake, and really the only things that has to do with House of Wax is there's a wax museum, and Paris Hilton and Jared Padalecki are in it.
Paris Hilton plays the goddess Leshy, who is, after the apocalypse has been triggered, decides, like, fuck it, I'm not gonna be, like, struggling on my own anymore. I'm just gonna go out and start mass killing and enjoying a feast.
So basically the basic plot in a nutshell of this is people in a small town are dying, and they appear, by reports, to be being killed by famous people, like James Dean or Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And at first it seems like it's a ghost episode, you know, and that's where, like, Sam and Dean's first instincts go, and they also do these things where, like, they signal, like, misdirects to the viewer too, because in Supernatural, whenever a ghost around, like, you can see your breath.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like a cold chill or something.
It's like a cold chill, and that happens every time there's an attack in this episode, so they're throwing a misdirect to you, the viewer, as well, trying to tell you that this is a ghost story. And then there's the twist at the end when somebody gets attacked by Paris Hilton, where suddenly you realize this isn't a ghost story, this is something else, you know? And this is like, and the concept is like, the Leshy, who is the god who feeds on its worshippers. So it needs people to worship it in order to feed, and since it's the modern times and people don't believe in pagan gods anymore, it has lost all worshippers. And so basically the Leshy has came up upon this idea that people worship celebrities, so if it takes on their form, people will worship it as the celebrity, and then they can feed on that person.
So the opening scene of the episode is like a bit of actual kind of true, like, history, which is about the car Little Bastard, which was the car that James Dean died in, which is like a legitimate, like, mythical piece of, like, celebrity, like, merchandise, you know?
We kind of open, we kind of open the episode on, like, our first big misdirect, which is, like, the idea that the subject of the episode is going to be James Dean's cursed car. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Which fits with Supernatural. I mean, like, Dean's like a car-obsessed guy, you know? It all kind of, like, fits, like, oh yeah, okay, this would make sense, this would work. Yeah. But that's not what it is.
No.
Then we have another guy gets killed.
That the car's fake.
I love the reveal when the next guy gets killed, because the next guy gets killed, he just says, like, oh no, it's you, but he can't be, you're dead, and then it pans over and it's fucking Abraham Lincoln. Oh yeah, it's so great. Oh my god. It's hilarious. Kind of reminds me of, like, do you remember the Wishing Well episode of Supernatural? Where they had, like, the Lou Ferrigno, like, Hulk or whatever.
Yeah, the Lou Ferrigno heart. Yeah. Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah, so it's like, it was a cool reveal, and then they go to this House of Wax and they meet this guy that runs it, and a typical, like, really funny, geeky character, you know?
And he has nothing to do with what's going on. Of course, there's more misdirects when he mentions that he's got an authentic item of memorabilia for every celebrity in that wax house. And so, like, of course, if you know the ghost lore on Supernatural, then you're aware that, like, ghosts are attached to, like, either the place that they died or personal artifacts.
Or, like, their literal remains, you know?
Yeah, their literal remains.
The objects that were close to them or their literal remains. So, like, Gandhi, it's like his glasses. That was funny too, Gandhi, like, being a scrappy fighter. It was funny.
Yeah, being a scrappy fighter, yeah. So once we learn that they have personal artifacts for, like, each of these people, then you start to think, okay, well, this is how the ghosts are manifesting here, right? I guess it's not ghosts. Again, the whole episode's misdirection until the end. And then you get to the end of it with the reveal. Paris Hilton is, like, really fun in this episode as the Leshy.
Yeah.
Just doing, like, a parody version of herself. And
this was a weird time where Paris Hilton was in quite a few interesting things. I mean, House of Wax wasn't really all that interesting. They're busting the balls on it here, but she was also in, like, the first season of Veronica Mars.
Yeah, she was.
Which was, like, around this time too, you know?
Yeah, which was around this time, yeah. And it's interesting because, like, Paris Hilton was, like, never afraid to, like, make fun of herself.
Yeah.
Which you gotta give her credit for that. There's a fun line where, like, Dean's, like, tells her, well, you can't feed on me, I'm not a Paris Hilton BFF. Heck, I haven't even seen House of Wax.
And in typical Supernatural, they find a way to, like, ground it in, add a serious note that kind of grounds it, where the Leshy says, oh no, I know who you worship. You worship your father. And they go into the whole thing about his desperate approval for his father, which is a huge part of the series. So it's like, they found a cool way to ground it in that.
Yeah, they found a cool way to ground it in that. And as she goes to turn into Dean's father, of course, they did jump on her because, well, if you didn't notice, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's name is not in the special guest star section of this episode. So yeah.
So, anything else to say about Fallen Idols?
No, that was it. I would say the last thing I have to say though is it's interesting because like this is Monster of the Week and a story is self-contained. But man, I forgot how like picking up any random episode of Supernatural is kind of difficult because there's so much like drama between the brothers that gets discussed that you just don't have context for unless you've been watching the season.
Yeah, it is. You know what? I got it. One last thing I gotta say. Supernatural to this day, I think, has the best like previously on segment.
Yes, it does.
Like I love it because it's always just then, and then when the episode starts, it just says now. And then this, I guess, was like the mid-season finale because it had the thing after the episode where it says like in the road ahead or something.
Yeah, the mid-season they do the road ahead, and then the season finale when they do like the then.
Carry on my way.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do the montage of Carry On. The season
the road
montage.
So far, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's to this day, I think that it's such a weird aspect because it's so normal most of the time, and very few shows have actually like really played with the format of that. And Supernatural does it really well. The only other example I can think of that was like really good like that was like I think the season finale or the series finale of Buffy, or maybe it was the season 5 finale, which was like might have like they thought was going to be the series finale. I don't remember, but one of the series finales they did this thing where they had this thing where it like went through like frame by frame, like very, very quickly, showed basically like every single monster she'd ever killed. And it was like really cool shot. Like it's like that, it's not that often that they actually really play with the actual fandom and what the fandom embraces and really play into that. Like shows don't really do that often. I mean, Lost is my favorite show of all time and it would just go previously on Lost, you know, and then have like a little montage of relevant scenes. That's what most shows do, you know. Supernatural, I think, always was kind of next level with the whole like then now thing. You know?
Oh yeah, they did like a really good job of just like hyping you up over like the next episode.
Yeah, it's very cool. If you're making a show now, showrunners, you know, pay attention to those little details. They can actually have kind of some meaning to the audience.
Absolutely.
Because we're still talking about that now. But yeah, so that is it for our advocate segment and it for the episode. So next week, we are going to, at last, be discussing season 2 of Sandman. We delayed this, I think, a few times. One time, I think, because of a Nintendo Direct. Another time, just because I think you were a bit overwhelmed with how much you had to watch at that point. But that's what we're going to be doing next week. Finally get into that, so I'm excited for that. We're going to be covering the entirety of season 2, as well as the bonus episode, which is like the last episode of the series.
Right, yeah. So we're covering the rest of the series.
Yes. I think we covered the first season in one episode, and we covered the last episode in a separate episode, I think. But this time we're doing the whole season 2 plus the bonus episode all in one go. So that's our topic for next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will on those same platforms. He is at FoxHero. You can check out our website, thetotalscreen.com. If you go to our website and open up a container story for any of our podcast episodes, you'll find all the relevant links to our social accounts, our SoundCloud page, our RSS feed, all of that's there. You can also subscribe to our podcast through your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast, as well as additional content, is available on our YouTube channel, so check that out as well. Until next week, thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.